Chapter 1: Nutrition and Plants. In Class 6, you learned that food is essential for all living organisms. Well, we have studied in our previous class that food is the only thing that living organisms derive energy from. You also learned that carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals are components of food. Or we can say a food is composed of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. These components of food are necessary for our body and are called nutrients. Well, these nutrients, namely carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, they are called as nutrients. Now, all living organisms require food. Well, all the living organisms that respire, that grow on this earth, or in order to produce energy. Now, plants can make their food themselves, but animals, including humans, cannot. Now, all the plants that you see around can prepare their own food with the help of sun, that we will study later on. But animals, including us, including humans, we cannot prepare our food. Either we have to get from the plants or from other sources. They get it from plants or animals, as it is stated here that humans get their food from plants or animals that eat plants. Thus, humans and animals are directly or indirectly dependent on plants. So therefore, we and animals, we are directly or indirectly dependent on plants. Bujo wants to know how plants prepare their own food. Well, we will study here. Now, mode of nutrition in plants, that how plants prepare their food. Now, plants are the only organisms that can prepare food for themselves by using water, carbon dioxide, and minerals. So these are the things. Also, plants need sun energy or solar energy or the sunlight in order to prepare their own food. The raw materials are present in their surroundings. What are the raw materials? Raw materials like water, carbon dioxide, and minerals. Now, the nutrients enable living organisms to build their bodies, to grow, to repair damaged parts of their bodies, and provide the energy to carry out life processes. So, why do we need to have food? Because from food we derive, or the organisms derive, energy in order to grow, to reproduce, and to repair damaged parts. For example, if you get hurt, so this is the food energy only, the energy derived from food only, that helps you repair your damaged part. Now, nutrition is the mode of taking food by an organisms. Now, what is nutrition? It is the mode of taking food by an organism and its utilization by them. Now, the mode of nutrition in which organisms make food themselves from simple substances is called autotrophic. Auto means self, trophos means nourishment, nutrition. Now, what are autotrophs? The organisms that prepare their own food by themselves are called as autotrophic, or the autotrophs, and it is made up of two terms. Auto means self, trophos means nourishment. Therefore, plants are called autotrophs because they prepare their own food. Now, animals and most other organisms take in ready-made food prepared by the plants. They are called heterotrophs. Hetero means others, that is, like human beings, like us, like we human beings. We cannot prepare our own food. We get it from plants or from animals. Therefore, we are called heterotrophs. Now, Paheli wants to know why our body cannot make food from carbon dioxide, water, and minerals like plants do. Now, which we will get to know in the following paragraph. Now, we may ask where the food factories of plants are located. Whether food is made in all parts of the plant or only in certain parts. How do plants obtain the raw materials from the surroundings? How do they transport them to the food factories of the plants? These are the questions that we will learn, that as to how the plants are able to prepare their own food. Now, photosynthesis. This is the process by which plants produce their own food, as they are called as autotrophs. Now, photosynthesis is what? It is the food making process in plants. Photosynthesis only happens in plants. Leaves are the food factories of plants. What are the leaves? Especially green leaves. These, as you see in the plants, they are green mostly. The synthesis of food in plants occurs in leaves. So the question can arise here that as to where the synthesis of food takes place in plants. So the answer would be leaves. Therefore, all the raw materials must reach there. What were the raw materials that we have studied? Those were water, carbon dioxide and mineral. Therefore, all the raw materials must reach there. Now water and mineral present in the soil are observed by the roots. So what was the first? Water and mineral. As you can see, water is one of the raw material. So it is absorbed by the roots and transported to the leaves, because this is the leaf only where photosynthesis will take place. Now carbon dioxide from air is taken in through the tiny pores present on the surface of the leaf. Under the microscope, there are small tiny pores which absorb this carbon dioxide. It is a gas which is a raw material to produce food. Now these pores are surrounded by guard cells. Such pores are called stomata. Now another question can arise that what is stomata? Now Bujo wants to know how water and minerals absorbed by roots reach the leaves. Now what is the process? One term came here, cells. Now what are cells? Cells. We have seen that building is made up of bricks. Well, if you can see, a wall is made up of brick. Small bricks constitutes the large building. Similarly, the bodies of living organisms are made of tiny units called cells. Same thing happens in our body. These bricks-like structure, the smallest cell, the smallest part in our body are called cells. Cells can be seen only under microscope that you can see in your laboratory. Some organisms are made of only one cell. They are called unicellular. Now the cell is enclosed by a thin outer boundary called cell membrane. Well, if this is a cell, this is the outer body which is mentioned as cell membrane. Now most cells have a distinct centrally located spherical structure called the nucleus. So this is the nucleus. What is this? This is spherical structure. Now the nucleus is surrounded by a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm. It is jelly-like, the jelly that you eat. It is very similar to that. This is called as cytoplasm. So to sum up, what is a cell? A cell is nothing but the smallest building block of a body, which consists of nucleus, a jelly-like structure called cytoplasm, and is surrounded by cell membrane. Now this was all about cells. Now water and minerals are transported to the leaves by the vessels which run like pipes throughout the root. So if you see a plant, there are roots at the bottom. You can see here, these are the roots, and here we have vessels like structures from where the water rises up and reaches the leaves, reaches the leaf here, where with the help of sunlight photosynthesis takes place. They form a continuous path of passage for the nutrients to reach the leaf. We will learn about transport of minerals and plants in chapter 11. Now Paheli wants to know what is so special about the leaves that they can synthesize food but other parts of the plant cannot. Well, this is a very good question here, that why only leaves produce food, not other parts like stem? Okay, why not the flower itself? Why not the roots itself? So we are going to study it here. The leaves have a green pigment called chlorophyll. Well, that's why we have mentioned earlier that with the help of that most green plants are able to make or are able to produce food because they contain a pigment called as chlorophyll. It helps leaves to capture the energy of the sunlight, because one of the raw material is also sunlight. This pigment called chlorophyll is responsible in order to catch that solar energy, which is the raw material to prepare food. Since the synthesis of food occurs in the presence of sunlight, it is called photosynthesis. Well, we can break down this word, photosynthesis. Now photo is light. Wherever it is written as photo, you can infer it to light. Synthesis is simple as combine, so light is getting combined here. So we find that chlorophyll, sunlight, carbon dioxide and water are necessary to carry out process of photosynthesis. So these are the important things. Chlorophyll, that is the green color pigment on the leaves only. Now sunlight, carbon dioxide and water are necessary to carry out the process of photosynthesis. It is a unique process on the earth. Yes, it is unique because this is the only process on earth that produces food in actual. The solar energy is captured by the leaves and stored in the plant in the form of food. Well, now the food is getting prepared and it is getting stored in the plant itself. The sun is the ultimate source of energy for all living organisms. If sun is not there, the existence of life on earth is impossible. Now, can you imagine the earth in the absence of photosynthesis? Now, in the absence of photosynthesis, there would not be any plants. Obviously, because photosynthesis only produces energy or the food. The survival of almost all living organisms directly or indirectly depends upon the food made by the plants. Besides, oxygen, which is essential for the survival of all living organisms, is produced during photosynthesis. And we are glad to know that the oxygen that we breathe or that we inhale is also produced during this process of photosynthesis. In the absence of photosynthesis, life would be impossible on Earth. Now, here is a note. Besides leaves, photosynthesis also takes place in other green parts of the plant, in green stems of green branches. So you can conclude that wherever you see green portion or green part in the plant, there you can conclude that photosynthesis will take place. The desert plants have scale or spine-like leaves to reduce loss of water by transpiration. What is transpiration? It is loss of water from the plants. Now, these plants have green stems which carry out photosynthesis. So it is not only the leaves itself, but wherever you see green, there photosynthesis can take place. But mostly it happens on the leaves. Now, during photosynthesis, chlorophyll containing cells of leaves in the presence of sunlight use carbon dioxide and water to synthesize carbohydrates. The process can be represented as an equation. If you observe this leaf under microscope, then you see this is the stomata, this section of the leaf. It contains stomatal opening and followed with, or this stomatal opening is protected by guard cells. Similarly, this is a section of a leaf. These are chlorophylls and surrounded by guard cells, and all the space within apart from these is termed as stoma. The whole process showing photosynthesis. There is a plant. Here are the roots. Roots transport water and minerals up to the leaves through these connecting tissues. Chlorophyll is present in the leaf, and the stomata observes carbon dioxide and light energy is also absorbed. Now, during the process, oxygen is released. As you can see here, oxygen is getting released, which is used by us or other animals on the planet. The carbohydrates ultimately get converted into starch. So the carbohydrates are also produced here, and they are converted in the form of starch and stored as a food for the plant. The presence of starch in leaves indicates the occurrence of photosynthesis. The starch is also a carbohydrate. So how do we know that a food has been prepared on the leaves? By the presence of starch. Now, Buju has observed some plants with deep red, violet or brown leaves. He wants to know whether these leaves also carry out photosynthesis. Well, obviously, yes, which we will see in this activity. Take two potted plants of same kind, keep one in the dark for 72 hours and the other in the sunlight. Perform iodine test with the leaves of both the plants as you did in class 6th. You have already done this in your previous class. Record your results. Now leave the pot which was earlier kept in the dark in the sunlight for 3 to 4 days and perform the iodine test again on its leaves. Record your observations in your notebook. Now the result is the leaves other than green also have chlorophyll. This is the important point. The leaves other than green also have chlorophyll. The large amount of red, brown and other pigments mask the green color. Photosynthesis takes place in these leaves also. So it is not always the green color. Other color leaves also produce food with the help of chlorophyll. As you can see here, leaves of various colors. Now you often see slimy green patches in ponds or in other stagnant water bodies. Stagnant means the water which is collected at a place, which is not moving, like in the case of ponds. These are generally formed by growth of organisms called algae. So these greenish color organisms are called as algae. Can you guess why algae are green in color? Obviously, they contain chlorophyll. So they contain chlorophyll which gives them the green color. Algae can also prepare their own food by photosynthesis. So till now we have studied that algae and green plants can prepare their own food, which ultimately is used by other organisms on the planet. Now synthesis of plant food other than carbohydrates. So it is not only the carbohydrates that get produced, there are other nutrients as well, as we have studied earlier. We have just learned that plants synthesize carbohydrates through the process of photosynthesis. The carbohydrates are made of carbon. So how are carbohydrates made up of? They are made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. These are used to synthesize other components of food. But proteins are nitrogenous substances which contain nitrogen. From where do the plants obtain nitrogen, which we are going to study now? Recall that nitrogen is present in abundance in gaseous form in the air. Yes, nitrogen is about 78% on the Earth's atmosphere. Now, however, plants cannot absorb nitrogen in this form because it is present in other form. Soil has certain bacteria that convert gaseous nitrogen into a usable form and release it into the soil. So there is a special kind of bacteria which is present in the soil that convert gaseous nitrogen present in the atmosphere into usable form, which are ultimately used by these plants. These soluble forms are absorbed by the plants along with water, that is, with the help of roots. Now also, you might have seen farmers adding fertilizer rich in nitrogen to the soil. In this way, the plants fulfill their requirements of nitrogen along with other constituents. With the help of nitrogen and other components, plants are able to prepare their own food. Plants can then synthesize components of food other than carbohydrates, such as proteins and fats. So what we learned in this paragraph, that carbohydrates can be prepared with the help of photosynthesis, but for other components of the food which are prepared by the plant, they need nitrogen, which is turned by the bacteria into the soil from the gaseous nitrogen, which ultimately gets manufactured into proteins and fats. 1.3. Other modes of nutrition in plants. There are some plants which do not have chlorophyll. They cannot synthesize their food. How do they survive? And from where do they derive nutrition? Okay, so we have learned till far that there are some plants which do not contain chlorophyll. Even though there are plants which are in different color, they do contain chlorophyll, but there are some plants which do not have chlorophyll. So they cannot synthesize their own food. Now, like humans and animals, such plants depend on the food produced by other plants. So it is not always true that plants produce their own food. Some plants are there which do not produce their own food. They use the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. And what was the earlier form of nutrition? That was autotrophic. So heterotrophic means different. Look at figure 1.5. Do you see yellow tubular structure twining around the stem and branches of a tree? This is a plant called Cuscuta, a marble. It does not have chlorophyll. It takes ready-made food from the plant on which it is climbing. The plant on which it climbs is called a host. Since it deprives the host of valuable nutrients, it is called a parasite. Are we and the other animals also parasites? For the plants, you should think about it and discuss with your teacher. Well, this is the Cuscuta, a marble on host plant. This is a tree, and you can see twinning around some bale-like structure. So these are parasites. So let's discuss on this. Are we parasites for plants? Well, we do not take their nutrition, so we cannot be called as parasites. When they grow fully, we cut them apart and use them as vegetables, etc. So we are not actually parasites. Parasites is something which gets attached to the host. This is the host from where it takes nutrients. It is not true in our case. Now Paheli wants to know whether mosquitoes, bed bugs, lice and leeches that suck our blood are also parasites. Well, yes, they can be termed as parasite because in that case we are the host for mosquitoes, bed bugs, lice and leeches. They suck our blood, so therefore they are parasites because they take our resources. Have you seen or heard of plants that can eat animals? There are few plants which can trap insects and digest them. You might have watched this on Discovery Channel. Is it not amazing? Such plants may be green or of some other color. Look at the plant in figure 1.6, the pitcher-like. So this is the pitcher. This is the lid. Whenever the insect goes inside, it automatically closes it. It senses the insects coming in and it closes lid, and insects dies out of no oxygen available to him, and it consumes. So this is pitcher plant showing lid and pitcher. Now structure is modified part of a leaf. The apex of the leaf forms a lid which can open and close the mouth of the pitcher. Inside the pitcher there are hair which are directed downwards When an insect lands in the pitcher, the lid closes and the trapped insect gets entangled into the hair. The insect is digested by the digestive juices secreted in the pitcher. Such insect-eating plants are called insectivorous plants. Insecti means they eat insects, therefore they are called as insectivorous plants. Is it possible that such plants do not get all the required nutrient from the soil in which they grow? Now Bujo is confused. Is the pitcher plant is green and carries out photosynthesis, then why does it feed on insects? Well, it seems to be a greedy plant. Now saprotrophs. You might have seen packets of mushrooms sold in vegetable market. You may have also seen flurry umbrella-like patches growing on rotting wood during the rainy season. You surely might have seen this. Let us find out what type of nutrients they need to survive and from where they get them. Because mushrooms are not green in color, they do not have chlorophyll, although we have studied that there are some plants which are not green, yet they have chlorophyll, so which we will come to know in the subsequent paragraph. Now these are packets of mushroom. Mushroom grow on decayed material. Decayed means rotten material. Now Bujo wants to know how these organisms acquire nutrients. They do not have mouths like animals do. They are not like green plants as they lack chlorophyll and cannot make food by photosynthesis, which we already discussed. Now write down your observations in a notebook. Most probably you will see cotton-like threads spread on the piece of bread. These organisms are called fungi, plural form of fungus. So as you can see here, fungi is growing on a piece of bread. They have a different mode of nutrition. They secrete digestive juices on the dead and decaying matter and convert it into a solution. So this is to be noted here. They turn the material into a solution. Then they absorb the nutrients from it. This mode of nutrition, in which organisms take nutrients in solution form from dead and decaying matter, is called saprotrophic nutrition. Plants which use saprotrophic mode of nutrition are called saprotrophs. Now fungi also grow on pickles, leather, clothes and other articles. They are left in hot and humid weather for a long time. So if you place these objects like pickles, leather, clothes and other articles for a long period of time in humid, that is water containing weather, and hot weather, they will develop fungi. Now Paheli is keen to know whether her beautiful shoes, which she wore on special occasions, were spoiled by fungi during the rainy season. She wants to know how fungi appear suddenly during the rainy season, because rainy season is having moist atmosphere around and therefore fungi grows over it. Now fungus provide shelter, water and minerals on the algae, and in return the alga provides food which it prepares by photosynthesis. Now fungus provides shelter, water and minerals to the alga, and in return the alga provides food which it prepares by photosynthesis. Now Bujo says once his grandfather told him that his wheat fields were spoiled by a fungus. He wants to know if fungi cause diseases also. Paheli told him that many fungi like yeast and mushrooms are useful, but some fungi cause diseases in plants, animals and humans. Some fungi are also used in medicines. So we have both positive and negative aspects related with fungi. Some are good for humans, some are bad for humans. How nutrients are replenished in the soil. Have you seen farmers spreading manure or fertilizers in the fields, or gardeners using them in lawns or pots? Do you know why they are added to the soil? You learned that plants absorb mineral nutrients from the soil, so their amounts in the soil keep on declining. Yes, when you are taking something from something, then the quantity gets less, so we have to also fill that thing. So this is the job done by farmers. So the amounts in the soil keep on declining. Fertilizers and manures contain plant nutrients such as nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, etc. The fertilizers are composed of nutrients such as nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. These nutrients need to be added from time to time to enrich the soil so that plants can take it to prepare their food. We can grow plants and keep them healthy if we can find out the nutrient requirements of plants. Usually crops require a lot of nitrogen to make proteins. After the harvest, the soil becomes deficient in nitrogen. It will be because the plants already took that thing from the soil. Though nitrogen gas is available in the plenty of air, plants cannot use it. As we have discussed earlier, it has to be converted. They need nitrogen in a soluble form, which are converted by a bacteria. The bacterium called rhizobium So the name of the bacteria which converts atmospheric nitrogen into soluble nitrogen is termed as rhizobium. Rhizobium can take atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into a soluble form. But rhizobium cannot make its own food. So it lives in the roots of gram, peas, mung beans and other legumes and provides them with nitrogen. Most of the pulses, or you can say dals, are obtained from leguminous plants. In return, the plants provide food and shelter to the bacteria. So what is happening here? That rhizobium cannot make their own food. They also need some food in order to sustain their life. So they live on the roots of gram, peas or some other dals, and they provide them the nitrogen. So they have a symbiotic relationship that is related to each other. This association is of great significance for the farmers. They do not need to add nitrogen fertilizers to the soil in which leguminous plants are grown because they are provided by the bacteria itself. In this chapter you learned that most of the plants are autotrophs, like green plants, which prepare their own food with the help of photosynthesis using chlorophyll. Only a few plants adopt other modes of nutrition like parasitic and saprotrophic. They derive nutrition from other organisms. Parasitic is living on a host. Saprotrophic is decaying, dead, by turning it into a solution and then consuming it. All animals are categorized as heterotrophs since they depend on plants and other animals for the food. Even human beings are termed as heterotrophs as well. Can we say that the insectivorous plants are partial heterotrophs? Well, yes, we can say. Why? Because they are feeding on some other food by directly consuming them. So what we have learned in this chapter, let's revise it. All organisms take food and utilize it to get energy for the growth and maintenance of the bodies. Green plants synthesize their food themselves by the process of photosynthesis. They're called autotrophs. Auto means by themselves. Plants use similar chemical substance like carbon dioxide, water and minerals for the synthesis of food. These are raw materials needed to make their own food. Chlorophyll and sunlight are the essential requirements for photosynthesis used by green plants. Complex chemical substances such as carbohydrates are the products of photosynthesis. Solar energy is stored by the leaves with the help of chlorophyll. They capture it. Oxygen is produced during photosynthesis used by human beings. Now oxygen released in photosynthesis is utilized by other living organisms for their survival. Fungi derive nutrition from dead, decaying matter. They are saprotrophs. Plants like Cuscuta are parasites. They take food from host plants. A few plants and all animals are dependent on others for their nutrition and are called heterotrophs like human beings. Now the exercise. Question first. Why do organisms need to take food? Well, the answer is food is needed by all organisms for many purposes. A. The main function of food is to help in growth. It helps us grow. B. Food provides energy for movements such as running, walking, etc. or any other activity. Food is also needed for repairing damaged body parts. So whenever we are hurt, we get repaired. Food gives us resistance to fight against diseases and protects us from the infections. So this was your question number first. Second, distinguish between a parasite and a saprotroph. So the organism that grows on the body of another organism and derives nutrients from it is known as parasite. Saprotroph, organism that obtains nutrients from the dead or decaying organic matter, is called saprotroph. They convert it into a solution. Examples of parasites: Cuscuta and orchids. And saprotroph are fungi and some bacteria. How would you test the presence of starch in leaves? Well, we have learned it. Experiment to test presence of starch in leaves. We'll take 2 healthy green potted plants of same species. Second, placing one pot in dark for 2 days to remove its starch from the leaves. A third step, placing other pot in sunlight for 2 days. Now, plucking one leaf from both plants after 2 days. Now putting few drops of iodine solution in them. So the results are: dark room pot will show no blue-black color on the leaf, confirming absence of starch. This is because it was consumed for the 2 days by the plant and there is no starch available. Now second, Sunlight spot displays blue-black color on the leaf, confirming the presence of starch. So therefore, sunlight produces starch. That was your third. Fourth, give a brief description of the process of synthesis of food in green plants. So it is a photosynthesis is the process of synthesis of food in green plants. In this chlorophyll containing plant cells synthesize food in the form of carbohydrates using carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight. Now, photosynthesis process, roots absorb water and transport it to the leaves. Second, stomata pores take carbon dioxide and diffuse it to the cells containing chlorophyll. Water is broken into hydrogen and oxygen by solar energy, and hydrogen then combines with carbon dioxide to form food. The equation representing photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water when it comes in contact with light and chlorophyll gives glucose and oxygen, which are used by other beings. Fifth, show with the help of a sketch that the plants are the ultimate source of food. Well, this is the sketch. You can draw it. There's a sun, there's a flower. Sun gives light energy which falls on leaves, and carbon dioxide is taken by the leaves to stomata, and water and minerals and chlorophyll, and oxygen is released plus starch is formed, which is used as a food by the plant. Glucose is the same thing as starch, and this is the ultimate source of food, the plants. Fill in the blanks. A. Green plants are called dash since they synthesize their own food. What they are called? They are called autotrophs. So green plants are called autotrophs because they prepare their own food. Now B. The food synthesized by the plant is stored as starch, or you can say also as glucose. In photosynthesis, solar energy is captured by the pigment called chlorophyll, green colored pigment. During photosynthesis, plants take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which is used by other beings on this earth. 7th, name the following: a parasitic plant with yellow, slender and tubular stem. It is termed as Cuscuta. It's yellow, slender and having tubular stem. A plant that has both autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So it is pitcher plant. It is both autotrophic and heterotrophic. The pores through which leaves exchange gases is termed as stomata. That was your 7th. Now 8th, take the correct answer. Marble is an example of, well, it is an example of a parasite. The plant which traps and feeds on insect is what? It is pitcher plant. We have studied it recently. Now 9th, match the items given in column 1 with the column 2. Chlorophyll. Well, it is leaf because leaf contains chlorophyll, so we will match it. Nitrogen is turned by bacteria, so we will match it with bacteria. Now a marble. A marble is what? It is a parasite. Therefore, we will match it with parasite. Now animals. They are heterotrophs because they cannot produce their own food. They feed on others. Therefore, we will connect it with heterotrophs. Now insects. Eating plant is termed as a pitcher plant. We have to combine it in this form. That makes your question number 9. 10th, mark T if the statement is true, F if it is false. Carbon dioxide is released during photosynthesis. Well, false. Oxygen is released. Carbon dioxide is taken. Plants which synthesize their own food themselves are called autotrophs, not saprotrophs. False. The product of photosynthesis is not a protein. Well, it is true. Now, solar energy is converted into chemical energy during photosynthesis. Well, that is true also. This is your 10th question. 11th, choose the correct option from the following. Which part of the plant gets carbon dioxide from the air for photosynthesis? Well, it is stomata, which contains chlorophyll. Question 12. Choose the correct option from the following. Plants take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere mainly through their what? Leaves, because it contains chlorophyll, green in color, mostly. So it is your leaves. That was the last question, question 12.